Number 56 to the House of Commons Standing Committee on Fisheries and Oceans. This meeting has taken place in a hybrid format pursuant to House Order of June 23, 2022. Before we proceed, I would like to make a few comments for the benefit of witnesses and members. Please wait until I recognise you by name before speaking. For those participating by video conference, click on the microphone icon to activate your mic, and please mute yourself when you are not speaking. Interpretation for those on Zoom, you have the choice at the bottom of your screen of either Floor, English or French. For those in the room, you can use the earpiece and select the desired channel. Please address all comments through the chair. Screenshots or taking photos of your screen is not permitted. The proceedings will be made available via the House of Commons website. Finally, a reminder that the use of a House-approved headset is mandatory for remote participation in parliamentary proceedings. If a virtual participant is not wearing an appropriate headset, interpretation cannot be provided, and therefore the person will not be able to participate in the committee proceedings. In accordance with the committee's routine motion concerning connection tests for witnesses, I'm informing the committee that all witnesses have completed the required connection test in advance of the meeting. Pursuant to Standing Order 1082 and the motion adopted on January 18, 2022, the committee is commencing its study of the ecosystem impacts and the management of pinniped populations. I would like to welcome our first panel of witnesses from the Department of Fisheries and Oceans, Jennifer Biot, Acting Director General, Fisheries Resource Management, Mike Hamill, Scientist Emeritus, Quebec Region, Bernard Vigneault, Director General, Ecosystem Science Directive, Dr. Mansour, Regional Director, Science, Newfoundland Labrador Region, of course by video conference, and Andrew Thompson, Regional Director, Science Pacific Region by video conference. Thank you all for taking the time to appear today. You have 5 minutes for an opening statement, and I believe Mr. Vigneault is going to provide that opening statement. When you're ready.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. It's a pleasure to be joined in you today here in Ottawa on the traditional territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe people to discuss with you the work Fisheries and Ocean is conducting on pinnipeds. My name is Bernard Vigneault. I'm the Director General responsible for Ecosystem Science. I'm joined today by Jennifer Biot, Acting Director General for National Fisheries Resource Management Program, Andrew Thompson on the line, the Regional Director for Pacific Region for Science, Atef Mansour, Regional Director for Science for the Newfoundland Region, also on the line, and here with us, Mike Hamill, Scientific Emeritus, who recently retired as the lead seal scientist for the Quebec region. The department has qualified, dedicated scientists across the country, and we are continuously improving our understanding of pinnipeds population and their roles in marine ecosystem. Our pinniped researchers are widely recognized both nationally and internationally for their expertise and leadership and the use of innovative methods to study pinnipeds ecology. The department currently has ongoing pinniped science activity across Canada, and these surveys and assessments that are conducted for the purpose of understanding the abundance, population trends, and distribution. We also lead ecological studies needed to provide a better understanding of the role of pinnipeds in the ecosystem, which includes their diet. The department is aware of the concern from the commercial fish harvester about the impact of seals and sea lion on the fishery, recognizing that there are many factors that could contribute to the decline or lack of recovery of fish stock. To address these concerns, the department established the Atlantic Seal Science Task Team in 2019 to gather inputs on science activity and program related to seal and their role in the ecosystem in Atlantic Canada and Quebec. The task team provided a number of recommendations in May 2022, one of which results in the Seal Summit hosted by the department and held in St. John, Newfoundland in November 2022. In light of recommendation from the task team from the department, to enhance the collaborative effort with stakeholders at the summit, the Minister of Fisheries and Ocean and Canadian Coast Guard announced funding available for scientific proposal that will improve our understanding of the role of seals in the ecosystem. These proposals are currently being reviewed, and successful applicant will be notified in the near future. Effort will continue to be made to advance other task team recommendations. On the West Coast, DFO Science continues to address the recommendation from 2 international workshops held in 2019 to identify the research gap with the University of British Columbia and the Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife. Work is underway in a number of areas. There is a plan in place in the coming year to provide the first ever assessment of arbor seal in Atlantic Canada and to survey Pacific arbor seals. The department is also implementing new biological methods to study the geographic and temporal variability in the diets of pinnipeds. The department used satellite tagging to study the distribution and movement pattern and foraging behavior of pinnipeds. The department also used animal-borne cameras to study the diet and foraging behavior of gray seal. In addition, the department is continuing to develop and test methods to incorporate mortality by predation from pinnipeds and other predators into the assessment of other prey species. Les avis scientifiques générés par
Scientific advice generated by these activities will continue to be used to inform the sustainable harvest of seals. The Department recognises the importance of a sustainable, humane, well-regulated harvest of seals, given that it supports Canada's Indigenous rural and coastal communities and is an important economic and cultural activity in Atlantic Canada, Quebec and the Arctic. The Department bases its management decisions using the precautionary approach. It utilises the best available information, including peer-reviewed science and Indigenous knowledge. The ongoing harvest of seals in Atlantic Canada is not intended to be used as a population control tool, but to manage seal populations sustainably. For the moment, there is no seal harvesting on the West Coast, and any potential commercial pinniped fishery are assessed under the new emerging fisheries policy. So to summarise, Mr. Chair, the DFO is committed to managing the seal harvest using the best available information to ensure management decisions are founded on science and are also evidence-based. Fisheries and Oceans Canada has a robust science programme, and the department scientists are continuously improving our understanding of pinniped populations and their roles in marine ecosystems. The department will continue to advance its scientific research on seals, and we will look at ways to further collaborate with stakeholders in science activities. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair and committee members, for having given us the opportunity to discuss with you the question of pinnipeds, and my colleagues and myself would be happy to take your questions.
For 5 minutes. We'll go to our rounds of questioning now. We'll start off with Mr. Small for 6 minutes or less, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks to the witnesses for coming out today and being a part of our important study. My first question is to Mr. Vigneault. There seems to be a huge discrepancy between the estimates of what seals consume by Norwegian scientists versus our Canadian scientists. Basically, the Norwegians are estimating that seals consume double what our scientists are estimating. What's your thoughts on that?
So, thank you, Mr. Chair, for the question. There is several uncertainty overall in terms of estimating the consumption of prey by seal. This is one of many uncertainty associated the difference in season, time of sampling, the specific age and relationship. I think where we concur with the Norwegian in terms of the overall scope, like the seals are one of the key predators in the marine ecosystem, along with other ground fish, cetacean, seabirds.
Thank you, Mr. Vigneault.
My pleasure.
How much fish in total tonnage is consumed by the 10 million seals in all combined species in Atlantic Canada? What's the tonnage annually?
So thank you, Mr. Chair, for the question. I don't have an exact number for the tonnage, but it's a large number. It's in the order of tens of thousands of.
Thank you, Mr. Vigneault. We could take that in writing if you don't mind, once you get that information. Looking back at the Senate committee, you gave, Mr. Chair, Mr. Vigneault gave testimony that priority seal populations are surveyed every 5 years. So, my question again is to Mr. Vigneault. What's the current population of hooded seals?
So thank you, Mr. Chair, for the question. The hooded seal is one of the species that we haven't been able to assess regularly. We have an estimate that's if I recall correctly, more than 5 years. We currently are allocating resources to do the survey, including doing research work on using our recent ARP seal survey as a source of data for hooded seals.
Okay, so it's been quite a while by the information I've got here. Do you think it's paying justice to conservation to not have had a survey of hooded seals, which are basically twice the size of harps, eat twice as much since 2006? Is that responsible practice, Mr. Vigneault?
Thank you for the share. Yeah, no, I agree. It's a significant gap in our knowledge. We're working towards that. To put things in context, there's very little harvesting of the hooded seal, and our estimate of the population are smaller than the major population of ARP seal. But I agree with the member. That's work that is ongoing to address that gap.
So, Mr. Chair, again to Mr. Vigneault, what's the current population of bearded seals?
So thank you for the question. The bearded seal is one of the population for which there's no commercial harvest in the Atlantic. So we don't have a full estimate of
No idea. What do you think the impacts of bearded seals are on the recovery of the crab stocks off the Labrador coast, considering they eat mostly shellfish, known to be big consumers of crab? Do you think it would be important to know how many of these bearded seals are out there?
So thank you for the question. Again, that's a gap that we will address through years. In terms of the impact of the health of the stock of the crab of the Labrador coast, the stock is healthy in that area. And again, the bird seal would be one of other predators in the marine ecosystem that we would have to look when we compare the predation.
Thank you, sir. That's wonderful. Thank you for your response. I've got here Andrew Thompson. The euthanizing of nuisance seals was banned by the current government in 2020 because of fear of sanctions from non-compliance with the Marine Mammal Protection Act in the USA. Why is this the case when Norway removes nuisance seals with no fear of similar sanctions?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. Is that a question to myself?
Mr. Thompson.
I would respectfully suggest it might be a better question for the Fisheries Management Representative Jennifer Bewey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the question. I think that, in terms of Norway versus Canada and our approach to nuisance seals, that MMPA certainly is a driver on why we had determined that we could no longer support the reduction of nuisance seals. I think there's concern about impacts to very important species that are exported to the U.S., such as lobster and crab. So I think that's a policy decision that we took as a department in terms of nuisance seals.
Thank you, Mr. Small. A little bit over time, not much. We'll now go to Mr. Morrissey for 6 minutes or less, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll direct my questions to Mr. Vigneault, and he can direct them to whoever may be gone. Candidly, what do you know today? What does DFO know today that it didn't know 10 years ago as it relates to the East Coast seal herd?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the question. I would ask Dr. Amel to comment on that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. We know a fair amount. One of the things that we've improved our information on is on diets. It's on movements through telemetry. It's through the assessments. We now have a time series of abundance estimates for the two main herds, the gray seals and the harp seals. So we've moved a long way since the last decade, even the last 2 decades.
Okay, if you could then, Mr. Chair, focus, Mr. Hamill, on what you know about diet.
I know that in my expertise is basically in the Gulf of St. Lawrence. So the gray seals are consumers primarily of fish. They feed considerably on cod, with capelin in the spring, cod more in the summer and the fall, winter. They feed on other species. You could find up 30-plus species, but basically
So
five of the mainstays.
Mr. Chair, so they are a significant predator of those species that the East Coast fishery depend on. Would that be correct?
Yes, they are, and we've shown that that's the case.
Okay. Again, Mr. Chair, back to Mr. Vigneault. You, in your opening statement, you talked about continually improving our science to understand the role of pinnipeds on habitat species. So again, appearing before this committee today, this is an issue that's been around for 20 years. What's your science telling you today that it was not telling you 10 years ago or 20?
So thank you for the question, Mr. Chair. The science have evolved. We have new tools that didn't exist 20 years ago, looking at the DNA, looking at the fatty acid analysis that help us have a very good measurement understanding of the prey relationship across the entire marine ecosystem. That has helped us to start documenting the key prey predator relationship between the stocks. Look at the entirety of the marine ecosystem, yes, the seals and the pinniped, but also the other predators that are in the ocean. Dr. Amel referred to the telemetry work. Now we have, with satellite tag and so on, we have much precise, much greater amount of data available in the movement of seal, their distribution. Also, the modeling we do to forecast the population abundance, that have evolved greatly, and it's still evolving, ongoing with the research. We're refining our understanding of these population through the years of monitoring and research.
Okay, thank you. Again, Mr. Chair, because you referenced in your answers to a number of questions, could you tell the committee why is there a gap in DFO science as it relates to the East Coast seal herd globally? Why is there a gap? There was questions you could not answer about certain populations. Why does the department have gaps in its scientific modeling and scientific information as it relates to the East Coast seal herd?
So, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, it's a question of evolving environment, science, and capacity as well. We focus our effort in.
What was your capacity been? What was your capacity in the past? What is versus your capacity today?
So over the last 5 years, for example, we have dedicated about $1 million to seal science annually.
$1 million, is that new money to seal science that was not there before?
It's money that we have that we allocate internally within the science budget.
But it's new money to seal science.
It's money of our ongoing budget for marine mammals, for example, that we allocate on seal study. We focus on supporting the science advice decision for the seal harvest. We focus on supporting the science advice for the fish stock as well, both in terms of for example, when we develop the rebuilding plans for the stock, looking at all the information that's available to be able to assess what's the role of predation among other causes of natural mortalities in the forecast for the stock.
Okay, thank you. In my time left, could you provide to the committee, if you don't have it, you can provide it in writing, is what trend lines are you seeing, and what trend lines may the department be seeing that's disturbing, that's causing concern to the department as it relates to the viability of other fish stocks in the Atlantic region?
Thank you, Mr.
So I want an answer.
Yeah. Okay. We could Mr. Chair, we can provide that information. If I understood well, the question is the.
Any trend line your science is showing or your data, any trend line that's alarming to the department as a potential impact on those fisheries on the East Coast that are vital to the East Coast fishery, lobster, crab, the rebuilding of the cod stocks in Newfoundland that hasn't occurred, all those other fisheries that we know pinnipeds live on, that the East Coast fishery depend on, because we have not established a viable seal fishery that's sustainable and supportable using regular economics?
All our projection and our estimates of natural mortality are in the public domain. We publish all our science assessment. In most cases, we don't have specific information on seal, except a few stock in the southern Gulf, where we have been able to establish a cause and effect relationship with gray seal. But in general, that is documented through our public science assessment of each stock. What is the future trend, the probability of growth under different fishing scenario, and we always discuss account for mortality, including predation in our assessments.
Thank you, Mr. Morrissey. We'll now go to Madame Desbiens pour 6 minutes, s'il vous plaît.
6 minutes, please. Thank you, Chair, and thank you for witnesses for coming. Very appreciated to have you with us to answer our questions. Right off, I'd like to say that about 25 years ago, I was on the St. Lawrence River with my dad, and we went cod fishing. Then suddenly, there was a complete hecatomb with cod fishing because there was not going to be any more seal hunting. And my dad said, this is the main predator of cod. And then a few years later, my dad said, it's finished with cod. I'm not going to see it in my life. There won't be any more cod in the river. That's what you're going to see. And then a few years later, my husband appeared, and he's a diver, and he saw lots of cod carcasses in the St. Lawrence River bed, and they had completely been eviscerated. And we were told that it was the seals that were eating this cod viscera. That was quite some time ago. And now it seems that there's been a drastic decline in resources, exactly what my dad told me, in fact, Mr. Chair. So to what extent, and I'm sure that my father was not the only one that was anticipating that this was going to happen, so to what extent are you taking into account science on the ground over the last 25 years? Is science on the ground part of your thinking and your approaches? Thank you very much for that question. Yes, absolutely. That is what we do with stock assessments. It's based on work on the ground, inventory, stocks, research work. And in our stock assessment processes, we invite fishers people who are out on the water to provide us with information as to what they've observed, to help us to interpret the data that we collect. That is indeed the case. Now, is there predation of cod by seals? Certainly. Our work has shown that in most cases, there's lots of other factors that explain the weak recovery of the cod population. There's conditions related to feed and the absence of capelin, and there's lots of other different factors that come into play rather than just the seals on an individual basis. We've seen that there are several predators in the food web chain that has gone up at the same time as seal populations. So there is predation, but it's not necessarily exclusively through seals. Well, I imagine they're not the only ones. So thank you very much for reminding me of that detail. Then another comment based on observations on the ground. Everyone is stating and observing that there's a great deal of work to be done when it comes to acceptability of re-establishing a certain amount of seal hunting. So in the budgets that are being planned and in your planned measures and actions, is there going to be a team that's going to be working on the recovery of a certain level of acceptability of seal harvesting, and therefore taking account of the type of hunting that could be reactivated in a much more acceptable way from an international point of view? Thank you, Mr. Chair. We are doing work to make sure that it's sustainable harvesting, that it's a resource that's available. So we make the necessary stock assessments to show that, and certain scientific work supports the humanitarian side of hunting. We've carried out a scientific study as to how we would bleed out the animals in a humane way that would also preserve the meat in terms of the scientific type side of things, we want to show that these are stocks that have recovered their historical level and are sustainable and can support being harvested further than is the case now. And I don't know if Jennifer Bui, my colleague, would like to add something on that. What at an international level, what's happening in terms of international acceptability of this? Are there any conclusive steps?
Merci pour la question.
Thank you very much for that question, Mr. Chair.
In terms of international, I mean, as Dr. Vigneault had stated, we always are promoting, the sustainability of our hunt, that it's well regulated, and that it's humane. Of course, we have a very strong marine mammal regulations that prescribe a 3-step process to ensure that the seals are humanely harvested. And these are examples of how we reach out to our international community to say this is a sustainable, well-regulated, and humane hunt. So it's through our actions, and it's also through our support of our sealing industry. So as was mentioned earlier, we had a seal summit in November. And coming out of that, I think it was an opportunity for us to have a very open and honest dialogue about the state of the seal fishery, about the innovation that the industry is promoting. So it's always an opportunity when we have dialogue with our industry to assess how we can facilitate that innovation, that showcase on the world stage about seal products. It's not really within the realm of my work as a fishery manager, but I think that our actions in the management of our fishery are demonstrating that, we have a well-managed harvest and that produces excellent quality products.
Okay, your 6 minutes are up, Madame Debienne. We'll now go to Ms. Barron for 6 minutes or less.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to the witnesses. My first question is for Mr. Thompson, because it's specific to the Pacific. That was a bit of a tongue twister. So in the report that we received with some background information, something that stood out to me, it was speaking specifically to the consumption of salmon by pinnipeds, and it had quoted some research that was done by Andrew Treitz and David Rosen from 2019. And if I can just quickly tell you what it says the causes for the decline in marine survival of Chinook and coho salmon and steelhead trout populations in the Salish Sea are complex and may include bottom-up processes that drive prey availability, top-down processes including increasing abundance of predators such as harbor seals that may be exacerbating mortality, as well as a multitude of anthropogenic factors such as habitat loss, contaminants, and hatchery management practices that may contribute to disease, reduced fish condition, and ultimately increased mortality. The cumulative effects of these factors are unknown. And I'm wondering, Mr. Thompson, if you can speak to if there's any further understanding or any thoughts around this piece of information that we were provided with.
To the chair, thank you very much for the question. It is certainly true that in the trying to understand the multitude of factors that affect Pacific salmon populations, it is a complex picture, and we know that there are multiple factors that both positively influence the returning populations of Pacific salmon. Certainly, that's one of the reasons why we conduct the diet composition studies for pinniped populations, but it's also why we invest time and energies into pathogen studies, habitat studies, monitoring the returns throughout the North Pacific, climate change studies, et cetera. So it is why we have such a diverse Pacific salmon research program, is try and understand the multiple factors that affect their survival.
Thank you. I'm not sure, Mr. Thompson, if you're the best person to answer this question, but I'm wondering how the research and funding that's being allocated on the coast differs and what the impacts of those differences are on the capacity to take on science in the Pacific, the Atlantic, and as well in the Arctic.
Well, I can certainly speak to in terms of Pacific funding, and maybe my colleague Dr. Vigneault could speak to other funding. But certainly, we have a I would say, a very healthy research program within Fisheries and Oceans Canada on the West Coast. The research program for Pacific region is approximately $100 million, about 540 researchers involved in all aspects of our scientific research program. So it's a very significant program that allows us, thankfully, to investigate the myriad of factors, the myriad of questions that come to us to try better understand our environment.
Mr. Chair, if may help, the resource assessment, including the funding, including the expertise, is allocated nationally, and it's a team that works collectively. We have the benefit of collaborating with a number of other stakeholders to help us in our endeavor. For example, the Arctic work, the recent survey that we're analyzing right now for walrus was done with in collaboration with Inuit communities. There's harvesters in the Atlantic that are providing samples for our study as well. And we are making, as I mentioned earlier in previous assault, we are making step in addressing the more data poor species. Like we'll do the first ever arbor seals assessment. The data collection is now complete. We'll do the assessment and publication later this year. And we also make full use of new technologies available to us to advance the work we're doing.
Building off of the response that you just provided, Mr. Vigneault, I believe I pronounced it correctly. I actually had a follow-up question because you had spoken about and you just referenced an example around the collaboration with stakeholders and finding ways to build upon that. I was recently in Nunavut specifically and out on the waters with some Indigenous local harvesters, and they were talking about the importance of them being part of these decisions, part of providing information that's vital for this, talking about how when they're out on the water, they know just based on their relationship with the water when they need to pull back, when they can fish, and they just have a wealth of information and traditional knowledge to provide. So how are we working alongside Indigenous harvesters as well as all fish harvesters out on the water and sort of bridging that information throughout our processes of deciding the science that we're going to use in our decisions moving forward?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the question. Yeah, there is ongoing collaboration, as I mentioned, especially in the Arctic. We collaborate both for the science and for the decision-making with the Wildlife Board, who help us design the sampling, contribute to analysis, and then make a recommendation for the harvest decision. Similarly, we invite Indigenous knowledge holder or traditional knowledge holder for collaboration when possible, or at the assessment. The Atlantic Seal Science Task Team recommended that there's interest, more opportunity to collaborate with harvester, and that we're looking at additional opportunity to do exactly that in the collection of the sample, in addition to the analysis of the results at the stock assessment.
Thank you, Ms. Barron. We'll now go to, I believe, Mr. Perkins first, and he's going to share his time with Mr. Arnold, and I'll leave it up to him when he does that. I know the last time he did it, he wasn't very sharing, but we'll try and keep an eye on him this time. So for 5 minutes or less, sir, when you're ready.
You don't watch out, I'll do the surgery on you next time. So,
I'd rather put up with the pain.
Dr. Vigneault and the witnesses, thank you for coming here. Dr. Vigneault, you'll recall at the Seal Summit in Newfoundland in November, I raised the issue of my order paper question on seal stomach content. At that time, you pledged to actually provide the details of what was in the stomachs, which this response from DFO did not provide. Will you table that for the last 10 years, the information that the department has with this committee, please?
So, Mr. Chair, I'm not clear on the question. As I mentioned at the SEAL Summit, the analysis is ongoing. What was provided in the parliamentary question is the list of ongoing analysis. We have taken measure to accelerate the pace of the...
I have limited time, but I'm seeing here going back to 2017. You must have analyzed it since then. Yeah. And can provide us the details. So I would ask that you table that. I'd move on to my next question, if I could. Seals eat somewhere between 10 to 30 pounds a day on average. By DFO's numbers, there's roughly about 11 million seals in Atlantic Canada. So that puts the consumption in the tens of millions of tons, roughly. We catch about 180,000 metric tons of finfish through the commercial fishery. So you'll agree the primary predator of finfish in the waters in Atlantic Canada are seals, not fishermen.
So, Mr. Chair, I agree that predation in general is very significant, orders of magnitude often in terms of compared to the harvesting. As I mentioned earlier, there's many other predators. Some of the predator have more impact in terms of consumption as our estimate. Like
my question was about seals versus commercial fishermen. You had mentioned, at the Seal Summit, and the minister has mentioned recently that the revelation that seals eat fish. You did that in May last year. But I'm curious because in 2021, DFO scientists publicly stated that gray seals have no effect on the cod population. And again, in 2019, they said the same thing. So how is it that you have seal contents, yet you say they don't have an impact?
Yes.
Now you say they do.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. What we're saying, it's different to be consuming versus having a predictable effect on the growth population. My colleague, Atef Mansour, could provide more information on these assessments.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll have to, I think, go to Mr. Arnold now.
Thank you. If that information could be provided in writing, we'd appreciate it. And thank you for being here. I'm going to direct my question to Mr. Thompson. Mr. Thompson, are you aware that DFO personnel intervened in the drafting of science advice to remove conclusions submitted by scientists for DFO's 2018 process that produced a science advice report meant to provide advice to inform a ministerial opinion on the imminent threat to survival of Chilcotin and Thompson steelhead? Yes or no?
I don't, I'm sorry I did not follow all that. I don't believe that we have a process that removes advice, but we have a CSAS process that provides advice, and I know that particular report is on our website.
That process was apparently manipulated to exclude information. Why did DFO scrub the Corman statements from the science advice provided to the minister?
I don't have a knowledge as to what you're speaking of, Mr. Arnold.
Okay. This has been in the news, in reports. I'm surprised that you are not aware of it.
I'm aware of the issue, Mr. Arnold, but I'm not aware of the statements you're reading to me from your paper there.
The steelhead report written by Mr. Corman, Bison, and Decker has been buried by DFO. Will you make it available so Canadians can read the science for themselves that was provided by Corman, Bison, and Decker?
The agreed to science advisory report is on the website.
No, will you release the Corman, Bison, and Decker science, not the report that was released on the website? The actual science that went into DFO to produce
As I understand, the consensus reached science advice is on the website.
That information apparently is not.
So the answer is no.
So the answer is you will not provide the information that was provided
As I understand,
to
the
that CSAS
consensus-based
process?
the scientific evidence or the scientific consensus report is available on our website.
We're looking for the scientific evidence, not the scientific consensus report. Why isn't that being made available?
The scientific consensus report is what's arrived at through the CSAS process.
Why aren't you releasing the science that actually was done?
It is the science, Mr. Arnold.
I believe my time's up.
Sorry, yeah, thanks, Mel. We'll now go to Mr. Cormier for 5 minutes or less, please.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Chair. Over the last 3 years, and the Baie des Chaleurs, there have been thousands of seals coming in that we haven't seen in the past. So I don't know if we've clarified this, but according to you, do you believe that seals eat lobster and crab? Have we clarified that, or could we please clarify it now? Thank you, Mr. Chair, for that question. Seal are opportunistic predators, so they eat lots of other species in our estimates, crabs and lobsters, are not the main prey. There's lots of uncertainty around that type of analysis, and there are lots of predators that have also increased during the same period, such as tuna and other seabirds. So I can turn to Dr. Mill to comment if you want. When I look at the mandate and the role of the DFO is to work in collaboration with the coastal communities, Indigenous people and harvesters for their prosperity, including fish and seafood. And as we've been saying, seals consume an enormous amount of fish and other types of seafood as well. So what are your suggested solutions so that we can reduce this population? Because earlier we talked about well-defined fisheries, and I believe it was Ms. Bui.
Define a well-managed hunt. Can you define for us what is a well-managed hunt?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the question. So, I mean, a well-managed hunt is one that is underpinned with science, first of all, so to ensure that it's sustainable, and we're keeping the population above a certain limit reference point, so a healthy population of seals. It's a well-managed hunt is also something that is done humanely. So as I mentioned earlier, we have a three-step process to ensure that our seals are dispatched in a way that does not let them suffer. And then
I guess my question is how this well-managed hunt reduce the population of seal so far in Atlantic Canada, if I can say.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the question. As a resource manager, our objective is to keep the seal population healthy. Our objective is not to reduce the seal population. Just like other fisheries, where we try to keep our fish at very high and healthy levels, our objective for seals is to keep it.
Just a minute. So you're saying that you want to keep the seal population in a healthy situation, but what about the crab and lobster and mackerel and herring? What about those species? What about those?
Well,
because they're like, it seems like seal is one of the problem that those species are, in some difficulty, right? Maybe not all of them, but some of them. So I'm kind of like, we want to keep the seal population healthy, but not the other resources? Is that what you're saying?
What I'm saying is that as a resource manager, we try to keep our stocks healthy. When they are not in a healthy state, if they're in a critical state, then we have rebuilding plans that prescribe a way that we're going to rebuild those stocks to healthy levels.
Okay, so if the rebuilding plan of some stock is reducing some of the seal population? For example, if seal is eating too much mackerel, can we reduce seal population?
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, for the question. I mean, part of the rebuilding plan is working with science to develop the mechanisms to rebuild that stock, looking at all the interconnected web of the ecosystem, and putting in place the measures required to rebuild that stock. I think that's looking at predation, looking at fishing pressure, looking at other environmental factors that might be impacting the stock. All of those are considered as part of the rebuilding plan.
Well, I know that can have an impact on our market, and we don't want that. But at the end of the day, if the seal population goes up so much that it has an impact on the resources of crab, lobster, mackerel and herring, then the markets won't have anything left. So I'm just trying to work through this. I'm 47. We've been talking about this for 25 years. We don't seem to be getting anywhere. So what are your solutions? Thank you for that question, Mr. Chair.
If there's an answer to that question, could you please provide it in writing, please? Thank you. We'll now go to Madame Debienne for 2.5 minutes, please.
Merci, Monsieur.
Thank you, Chair. I'd allow Mr. Vigneault to answer Mr. Cormier's question because I was heading in exactly the same direction. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Yes, to be clear. That is why it's important to have the right science and the right understanding of the specific impact of predation when we're managing commercial fish stocks. Often we don't have any evidence that seal are having an impact, for example, on lobster, because historically they're very healthy, they're doing well, there's nothing at stake there. But when it came to the assessment, the scientific assessment for mackerel, which has just come out, once again, there were lots of other predators, such as the northern gannets, that have gone up, and they consumed the estimations for consumption are much higher than for seals. So if we just concentrated on eliminating seals, then I don't think there would be a significant effect, because there's lots of other predators. It's a very complex environment, so we can't guarantee that simply reducing the seal population will actually have a direct and significant impact on the fish stocks in general. So if we're summarizing this correctly, it seems there are other predators that play an important role, which means that all of the resources in the seas are going down in general, apart from lobsters and crabs in general. Are you able to give us an idea of the proportions? You've said there's more of an impact from other predators on resources compared to the impact of seals. There's lots of data circulating, and we're trying to work through all of this today. So could you please give us some idea of sizes, proportions, according to your most recent data? Thank you for that question, Mr. Chair. In certain cases, yes, we do have estimates. There's lots of uncertainties, but it's ideas of scale. And with mackerel, it's going to be the stock assessment that we're just going to publish. There's similar work that's been done in Newfoundland and Labrador. And I'd like to add, if you allow me, that, of course, there's the question of predation, but there's lots of other environmental factors that have a fundamental impact on re-establishment of stocks, such as climate change, or in the St. Lawrence, in the Gulf of St. Lawrence, the water is heating up, there is acidification, and that limits the habitat for several species, and that has a direct impact on their recovery.
JBM will now go to Ms. Barron for 2.5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Chair. Is it Bowie? Bowie, yes, great. Just following what you were saying before, I'm just trying to follow the chain of what you were talking about. So you were talking about the rebuilding plans, and I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, you were talking about how your job is not to reduce the numbers, but to have healthy stocks. And so just following that thought, if, for example, you were looking at the numbers of cod or salmon, needing to have a rebuilding plan, and you had mentioned that you look at all the other factors, say you found that pinniped was one of the factors that was influencing that decline, would part of that plan include you looking at, for example, a sustainable seal harvest? And do you work alongside other levels of government as well? For example, there's, as you know, livelihoods, communities, and so on that are all impacted by these decisions. So I'm wondering if there's any work that happens alongside other departments when we're looking at a real holistic rebuilding plan, when we're looking at stock management.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the question. Rebuilding plans are actually integrated in part of the Fisheries Act now. Since 2019, the fish stock provisions as part of the Fisheries Act require us to put in place a rebuilding plan when stocks fall below a certain reference point, so they're in the critical zone. So like a stock like mackerel, for example, we are developing a rebuilding plan to ensure that the stock grows over time. And there's a number of factors that we look at that to help regrow that stock. And I mean, we work hand in hand with our science colleagues to look at all those factors, because, as I mentioned earlier, it's a very complex web in the ecosystem, and so there could be a number of different elements that would go into that rebuilding plan. And of course, we would also work with our stakeholders to ensure that they understand that we are rebuilding the stocks back up to healthy levels to ensure that we can have productive fisheries once again.
I'm out of time. Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you, Ms. Byron. There was 2 seconds left when you went to ask questions, so I tried to cut you off. We'll now go to Mr. Bragdon for 5 minutes or less, please.
Mr. Chair, I'm yielding my time to Mr. Perkins and Mr. Arnold. I believe they're splitting that time.
Aren't
But
you Santa
I can
Claus
always
today?
ask a question if you like.
It's up to you. It's your time.
Okay, I'll ask one question and I'll yield. Just one question to whichever one of you feel you're best able to answer, and that's in regards to, has there been any meaningful consultation with the harvesters as to what they are seeing on the waters, where they harvest fish, and what they are witnessing and what they are experiencing? Has there been direct consultation and getting direct feedback from the harvesters who are most impacted by these types of decisions? That's my one question, and I'll yield to my friend, Mr. Perkins.
We have an Atlantic Seal Advisory meeting annually, and the purpose of that meeting is to get the feedback from our stakeholders about what they're seeing on the water, as well as have an exchange of information. And I think also, I wasn't there, but the SEAL Summit certainly provided also a forum with diverse group of stakeholders to exchange information as well. So we're in constant communication with sealers across Atlantic Canada.
Thank you. So I'm still a little baffled at this issue that as late as 2021 and in 2019 DFO was saying publicly that seals don't have an impact on northern cod, and Dr. McAllister, you just said basically you don't think they have major impact because there's other predators, but I think tens of millions of tons of fish consumed has an impact. In fact, you're probably aware of the witness that's coming next, Dr. McAllister, in his peer-reviewed science that was released in 2018 on the collapse of the northern cod, where he said that gray seals are major predators of Atlantic cod. They are the major reason why it's not recovering, even though it's only 15% of the diet of a gray seal. So how do you mesh the fact that independent scientists have been saying for years that this is a major factor preventing northern cod from recovering, yet DFO continues to maintain that it's not?
Mr. Chair, thanks for the question, and let me clarify. Like, we have reached the same conclusion in our work, previous work, in the Southern Gulf. We have established that gray seal have an impact on the recovery of ground fish. I think where there's a confusion is for ARP seal of Newfoundland and Labrador for northern cod. That's where the work to date, and again, we're doing additional work to expand the number of sample as recommended by the seal science testing and so on. But to date, our conclusion is that the main factor limiting the growth of northern cod is the availability of their prey capelin. It's not predation by seal.
I doubt 7.6 million harp seals are eating Alberta beef and aren't impacting fish, but I'll turn it over to Mr. Arnold.
Thank you. I'm going to go back to Mr. Burns, if I could, or Mr. Thompson, pardon me. Back to this question of the science report on recovery potential of steelhead. Mr. Corman's recovery potential assessment said reducing pinniped predation was the best way to support recovery of endangered steelhead populations. But after DFO folks got their hands on the science advice report of the minister stated there's no consensus that the growing pinniped population in the Pacific was a factor in steelhead declines. Why did DFO scrub those statements by Mr. Corman from the science advice provided to the minister?
I wasn't there at the time, Mr. Arnold, but I think from the statements you're making that what the advice provided to the minister was the consensus opinion of through the CSAS process.
So his science advice was ignored. If predation is established as a factor for DFO's ecosystem-based fisheries management, why does DFO insist on ignoring factors of pinniped predation on wild fish stocks?
I don't think we're ignoring factors at all, Mr. Arnold. We have a rather robust research program to try and understand exactly what the predation rates of pinnipeds are on salmon, and we're looking at the diets of salmon both through DNA technology and hard part analysis of their scat samples to try and understand both the species variation across the diets, but also where they are found geographically. Obviously, there's a greater preponderance of salmon found in seal stomachs in the estuary than there is out in the non-estuarine areas out in the marine environment more, and so that's part of the research that's ongoing to help inform our management colleagues.
What is the objective of the ministry to have that science information available to make scientific informed decisions on pinniped management?
We publish on a regular basis aerial surveys data for numbers of seals. There's a report coming out on the scat analysis in a relatively short period of time, and there's of course collaborations with other researchers like in Washington State as well on diet research as well. So there's a fairly regular publication of data as the research is concluded.
Thank you, Mr. Arnold. We'll go to Mr. Hardy now for one question to finish out this first hour of our committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you all for being here. It's a question for Mr. Thompson. This committee, our chair, just tabled a report on DFO science. And from what we've heard today, this consensus model for landing on science advice to the minister has once again left gaps that really don't pass the sniff test. If we were to ask Josh Corman to provide this committee with the material that was not included in the report, would he be permitted to give it to us?
I would think he would be. I don't have any way of controlling Mr. Corman.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
Nor would I attempt to.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Hardy. I want to say thank you to our witnesses for appearing today. The department is always very cooperative with this committee and here when we need them, and I'm sure we might be calling you back before this study is over, so look forward to seeing you again soon. So again, thank you very much. We'll take a couple of moments now to suspend while we switch over to another set of witnesses.
Thank you.
I recognize you by name before speaking. For those participating by video conference, click on the microphone icon to activate your mic, and please mute yourself when you are not speaking. Interpretation for those on Zoom, you have the choice at the bottom of your screen of either Floor, English or French. For those in the room, you can use the earpiece and select the desired channel right in front of you, and all comments should be addressed through the chair. Finally, a reminder, the use of a House-approved headset is mandatory for all virtual participants in parliamentary proceedings. I would now like to welcome our witnesses, of course. Appearing as an individual, we have Murdoch McAllister, Associate Professor, University of British Columbia by video conference. We also have representing the Reconcile Inuksawiti, we have Ruben Komangapik, and Co-Chief Executive Officer, and Jonas Menj, Co-Chief Executive Officer. Hope I didn't massacre those names too badly. Thank you for taking the time to appear today. You each have 5 minutes for an opening statement, so we'll go to Mr. McAllister first, please, for 5 minutes or less.
Good afternoon. Thanks for inviting me as a witness. I'd like to start, first of all, with a study on BC harbour seals. They've increased about tenfold in abundance since the 1970s, approximately at about 100,000 animals. Their dietary requirements are approximately 2 kilograms per day, leading to about 70,000 tons eaten per year. And diet studies show consumption of numerous different fish species, including salmon and other valuable fish stocks, and consumption of, let's say, species at different life stages, including juveniles. And my research team has looked at predation rates on Chinook and coho in southern BC, and numerous of these stocks have collapsed to very low levels, and despite very low fishing rates, since the early 90s, these stocks have not recovered, showed signs of recovery. And our study, which looked in detail at predation on juvenile Chinook and coho salmon by harbor seals, indicated that those predation rates have increased about tenfold, and they're up to about 40% of all juvenile Chinook salmon entering saltwater, and about 60% of all coho salmon, juvenile coho salmon entering saltwater. That's in southern BC. And so what are the population effects? Well, we've done a meta-analysis of 20 different Chinook salmon stocks, looking at the productivity. We found, let's say, a significant negative association between stock productivity and harbor seal abundance, local seal abundance for 14 out of 20 of these Chinook salmon stocks. And with the increase in harbor seals, our study has shown that the sustainable harvest rates on average have dropped by about 44%, and sustainable yields have dropped in association with harbor seal predation by about 74% since the 1970s. I'll just move on to the next study. In another study, we investigated hypotheses about Steller sea lion predation on sockeye salmon. And this is Fraser River sockeye salmon. There's been about a six-fold increase in abundance of Steller sea lions, up to about 48,000 animals, at least up till 2017. That's BC-wide. And they eat on average about 18 kilograms of fish a day. And this leads to about 300,000 tons eaten per year, more than combined fisheries and aquaculture tonnage in BC per year. And we found that with low abundance sockeye salmon runs, harvest rates have dropped, and these stocks are going continuing to decline. Our analysis of predation around the northern end of Vancouver Island by Steller sea lions suggests that harvest, let's say, the predation rates are up to about 60% per year, and they're highest in the years when the abundance of sockeye is lowest. And our study indicates that these low abundance sockeye salmon stocks could be stuck in a predator pit caused by predation. And I'll move along to another study that was just previously mentioned on Gulf of St. Lawrence, southern Gulf of St. Lawrence cod and predation by Atlantic gray seals. And this was an data-intensive modeling study where we found that the predation rates on cod in this stock have increased perhaps tenfold since the 1970s. The stock, despite low fishing rates, has not recovered and is continuing to decline. And quite alarmingly, we see negative rates of production at the lowest stock sizes, and our modeling suggests that that is due to predation by gray seals, which are still feeding on mature cod of this stock. And the diet studies show that there's enough cod in the diet, enough eaten to account for this continuing decline, and it's so pronounced that it could potentially lead to stock extinction. I'll move on to my summary here. So since the 1990s, on both coasts, we see numerous depleted fish stocks in Canada that have not recovered. This is despite markedly reduced fishing rates, and we've seen increased predation rates on numerous fish stocks, up to tenfold increases in predation rates. And some cases, our studies show those predation rates have exceeded natural productive capacity. And this has impacted, our studies show that these increases in predation have reduced sustainable yields and sustainable harvest rates. And many of the low abundant stocks could be trapped in predator pits, kept low by intensive predation rates by different pinniped populations. Okay, I'll finish there. Thanks.
Thank you for that. We'll now ask Mr. Landsbergen if he's able to hear me to say a few words so as we can just do a quick test, introduce yourself and the group you represent.
Yes, good afternoon, Chair. I hope you can hear me.
Yeah, just waiting. Move your mic, move the boom up a bit. There you go. Try again.
Good afternoon. Is this better?
Yes, okay. I'm getting a thumbs up from translation. You can start your opening 5-minute statement, please.
Thank you very much. And good afternoon. And thank you for the invitation to appear before you today. Apologize for not being there in person, but I had a prior commitment that has to be in person. As many of you know, the Fisheries Council of Canada is the national association representing wild capture processors across the country, and all of whom also harvest. I wish to applaud the committee for undertaking such an important study. Canada has a robust fisheries management regulatory regime that is supposed to maintain sustainable commercial fisheries, and having the understanding of the interrelationship between fish stocks and seals needs to be an integral part of the process. FCC is in general agreement with the science recommendations of the Atlantic Seal Science Task Team, and in their report, the task team highlighted that the data available on the food, feeding, and migration of seals to be woefully lacking, and in some regions not studied at all. Not having this information causes a serious issue when trying to develop management plans for fish stocks and the recovery plans of fish stocks, or rebuilding plans for fish stocks listed in the cautious or critical zone. In particular, FCC supports recommendations 1 to 3 in the SEAL Task Team report as they address the need for more science to fill in the gaps of the existing scientific body of knowledge. I am pleased that the scope of the study includes both East and West Coast. Most of the focus until now, including the task team, as per its terms of reference, has been only on Atlantic Canada. It is important to acknowledge and better understand the extent of overpopulation of seals and sea lions and their subsequent impact on the marine ecosystem on all Canadian coasts. Therefore, when you make recommendations to the government, I would urge you to be inclusive of all 3 of Canada's coasts. It is also important to note that it is not just the direct impact seals have on their prey species that needs to be studied, but also the indirect impact they may have on the entirety of the marine food chain and ecosystem. An example of this would be the impact seals and sea lions have on Chinook salmon, and as a result, impact on the southern resident killer whales. While the need to gather more science on the impact of seals is greatly important, FCC stresses that it should not be at the expense of core fisheries science. We understand there is a finite amount of resources DFO has. However, fisheries science and management are paramount to Canada maintaining a sustainable resource. FCC is hopeful that the call for proposals announced at the end of the SEAL Summit will fill some of the science gaps. Beyond that, DFO should consider external and in-house options over the longer-term science need particularly so core fishery science work is not undermined. My last and perhaps most important comment relates to seafood markets. There are two aspects to this: market access, as defined by government regulations in the destination jurisdiction, and market acceptance, which is the private sector's willingness to buy our products. It is immensely important that as the government considers potential steps moving forward, its actions do not disrupt either the market access or acceptance of Canadian fish and seafood products, both internationally and domestically. I cannot stress this enough. This could have serious impacts on coastal communities that depend on our sector. Foreign jurisdictions to which Canada exports have regulations that it could impede our sector's market access. Most notably, both the US and EU currently have near, if not complete, bans on importing seal products. And they also have very strict rules regarding the harming of marine mammals that, if deemed violated, could limit or eliminate the market access of our fish and seafood products. And for the US, NOAA is still reviewing Canada's submissions for comparability findings for our fisheries under its Marine Mammal Protection Act. And NOAA is scheduled to release its findings by the end of this year. In terms of market acceptance, some importers and domestic buyers do not want to be linked with companies and/or countries associated with the sealing industry. So there must be extreme caution by the government as to not jeopardize existing customers for Canadian seafood companies. We are working hard to improve the public trust of our sector and strengthen our market brand. These efforts could be easily undermined by government actions that are not well informed and communicated. Thank you for your attention. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you for that. We'll now go to our witnesses in the room. I don't know if both of you are sharing the 5 minutes or one of you are doing the 5-minute opening statement, but when you're ready, you can start.
Me? Yeah. Okay.
Bonjour.
On est vraiment très heureux d'être.
We're very happy to be here today and to have been invited by Caroline. Thank you very much for that. And I'm very happy to speak in French, and be great when Ruben one day will be able to express self-initiative. So I'm Ruanes Mingen, and I come from the Magdalen Islands. I'm a photographer, and I'm also Association of the Intra-Quebec Seal Hunters, and I'm co-founder of this organisation together with Ruben Coman-Gabic, who comes from Nunavut, Recon Seal. And in 2022, together, we set up Reconcile Inuksitu in Magdalene Islands. And Reconcile, of course, plays on reconciliation and seals, which, of course, means FOPO in French. And it means food for humans in Inuktitut. And our innovative project is to relaunch the seal industry while changing the image of hunting and replacing it by reconciliation of our different cultures amongst hunters that are Indigenous and non-Indigenous. And Reconciliation is Magdalene people and Inuits who hunt and work together and hunt a grey seal around the Magdalene Islands and then redistribute it. They redistribute the meal and the pelt to Inuit urban Inuits through organisations such as TI and Oswit, Inuit Art, which is based in Ottawa, and Mikevik, which is based in Montreal. And according to several studies, when Inuk is cut off from their traditional meat, such as seal, their mental health and their identity suffer, and the Inuit history has been marked by the consequences of colonialism, but it's also been moulded by this reappropriation of their socio-cultural and economic destiny as well as their political destiny. And as a vector for intergenerational transmission, seal is an occasion to bring back these traditions and also acquire knowledge and develop one's self-esteem, and as well as attacking food insecurity of Inuits who are living in urban areas by providing them with a food, which is a basic food staple for their physical and mental health. Our initiative has also made progress in terms of knowledge, culture and traditions thanks to the complete use of the animal. And I mean the complete use of the animal. There's just the dental organs and the stomach that we throw away, but all of the offal, etc., and the brain, the tongue and the eyes are all consumed, just to give you an idea of what we eat. and the pelt is used in sewing and tanning projects. And seal hunting is a very important aspect of our living culture for Inuits and also for Magdalese people. That is why with our project we want to have reappropriation and giving value back to these traditional cultures for distinct communities, but that are related with this common tradition around the seal. So we're putting all of our heart into this and all of our own monetary resources, and we're nourishing human beings by doing this. Enrique Zinouski is the proof that we can work together, Indigenous and non-Indigenous people, the Magdalese people, and perhaps also with Newfoundlanders. And we're not just talking about reconciliation here. We actually do it. We put it into practice. And if we're able to do this on a small scale with our own resources, imagine what we could accomplish with financial support from the government. Thank you. And I'll give the floor to Ruben Komangabik.
First of all, I'd like to say thank you, Chairman. I'm here. My name is Ruben Komangapik. I'm from Pawn Inlet, Nunavut. My first time I ever killed a seal was I was 3 years old, and it was a baby too, a white coat. My father brought it back to teach me how to see the animal in whole. For the past 3 years, I have been living in Ottawa, working to feed my relatives in the city. With UNS, we founded Reconcile to address the problem with constant access to seal meat living in the cities. It's time to take care and protect nature by hunting seals, by not just taking the seals, we're actually feeding the oceans too. It goes right back to the very small creatures. We need the government to help us change the image of the seal hunt and reconcile with all the different seal hunting cultures in this country. We need to educate Canadians through electronically, billboards, or commercials to show the Canadians that the seal is not a bad thing, it's a great resource that we can utilize. Effects on the body and mind is renewed and abundant when you are fed with the right nutrition. We must regain our nourishments and economic freedom by hunting the seals. Food insecurity is really a problem both in the south and in the north. So do not rely on science alone. You should rely on Inuit and the Aboriginals, I don't know what you call us these days, and the fishermen out there that are doing the actual work in front of what's going on around them.
Okay, I'm sorry, I have to stop it there. We're gone about a minute over the 5-minute opening statement, so if you have it in writing, you can submit it and we'll make sure that's included. But I have to get to some rounds of questioning. We'll go to Mr. Arnold first for 5 minutes, or 6 minutes or less, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll start off, I'm going to split my time with Mr. Perkins. I'll start off with Mr. McAllister. Thank you for providing your document to us, and there are a few things in here I see, and I'll talk in some other language that I've heard in other fish and wildlife management channels. Basically, that's predator swamping and predator pit. And in some of your charts, it seems to indicate that some of the West Coast salmon populations now are so low that the high numbers of seals are having basically a compound effect on those salmon to the point where they're in a predator pit. They're having difficulty getting out of it. Whereas when we have high abundance of salmon populations, it's what's called predator swamping. That there's so much feed going out that the predators are swamped and they have very little effect on the prey species. Would you be able to elaborate a little bit on that?
Yes, Price River sockeye is a good example of that, in that once every 4 years, there's a very large return. That's been consistently large once every 4 years since the 1940s or thereabouts, after the Hell's Gate Fishway went in. And that's been consistently strong, in the order of maybe 5 to 30 million salmon coming back every year. And those juvenile salmon go out to sea in mass. And let's say analyses suggest that there's so many salmon, and there's so few, relatively few predators per prey item, that the seal population, for example, just gets swamped. It can't actually have as big impacts on those migrating sockeye salmon, and as well the settler sea lion population on the adults will get swamped in terms of the short time in which they come by. Whereas the much smaller populations of sockeye salmon between those dominant years, the three subdominant lines, they were actually quite dominant up till or quite abundant up to the 1980s. But then we saw subsequent declines in those, let's say, off-cycle lines have been decreasing progressively, and the abundance of stellar sea lions, for example, is high enough such that when there's only a couple of million salmon coming back, they could easily eat 60% of them. Like, that's what a study has suggested. And so that what happens is you get a much lower stable equilibrium. Like, even with no fishing at all, instead of getting without fishing, you might get 10 million salmon coming back, but with seals and sea lions, it's like another fleet. It's holding those sockeye salmon at a very low level at maybe 1 to 2 million. And we don't know, those trends are worrying because they're going down and down. So it could be either a stable or unstable equilibrium, such that it's maybe stable at a low level, or unstable and maybe going to extinction. We can't distinguish at this point. Thanks.
Thank you very much. I'll turn it over to Mr. Perkins.
Thank you. Thank you, witnesses, and for my friends at Reseal. Nice to see you again, Reconcile. Dr. McAllister, I want to talk to you a bit about the study from 2017, 2018 that you released with regard to seals and northern cod. And in the abstract part of it, it says that the collapse of the northern cod 31 years ago, which started before then in 1991, does not appear to have been caused by seals, mainly by other factors. I'm assuming one of the reasons for the conclusion of that is because the numbers of seals were a lot lower then than they are today.
Yes, that's correct. And stock assessments suggest that the fishing mortality rates were high, but the data are good enough. We have so much data that we can estimate the natural mortality rates as they vary from year to year. And with northern cod, it appears there's a consistent finding that the natural mortality rate, there was a really big spike. We don't know why. There's no explanation. There may be some correlation with oceanographic variables, but back in 1990, there was a very big spike. This paper that you're looking at is focused on the southern Gulf of St. Lawrence cod stock. So this paper, I don't believe we actually made much reference to the northern cod stock. This is southern Gulf of St. Lawrence cod, and
thank you. And so
we haven't studied that, so we can't make statements.
You go on and to discuss that gray seals starting in the late 1990s were clearly the number one issue because of the predation. And I think you referenced the growth as the reason, growing, I think it says from over 60 years, from 8,000 animals in 1960 to 500,000 by 2014. That number just for that area seems a lot higher than what we hear from DFO on their official counts overall of what the gray seal population is.
Yes, that's an estimate for the, I think, entire East Coast. Our study focused just on the localized population of gray seals in the area, I believe, where the Gulf of St. Lawrence cod southern stock is known to overwinter. And so we weren't using that big number. We're using a much smaller number. It's in the paper, and we had collaboration with Mike Hamill and Doug Swain, who helped to focus our analysis on just the right components of the gray seal population. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Perkins. We'll now go to Mr. Hardy for 6 minutes or less, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll be splitting some time with Mr. Kellaway. Mr. McAllister, the research, the work that you did, was it subject to the CSAS process, or was this totally independent of DFO science?
So which work are you referring to? Is this the
the one that you cited off the top, and some of the work that you have done?
Yeah, so this peer-reviewed published paper, Canadian Journal of Fisheries, Aquatic Science, no, that was separate from CSAS. And let's say the harbor seal work was also separate from CSAS, although I did collaborate in a CSAS process on stock assessment of yellow eye rockfish, where we actually included pinniped predation from 3 different pinniped species inside waters, yellow eye rockfish. And that analysis suggested exactly the same thing as we'd been finding, for example, with the Gulf of St. Louis cod, like with no fishing at all, abundance of cod of this rockfish would continue. And that was CSAS process, and it was peer-reviewed and accepted. Yes, thanks.
Thank you for that. A couple of years ago, we had a witness from Norway, and we happened to ask him about the fact that the seal population in Norway seems to have been managed down. He kind of smiled and just said, well, they went away. Do you have any insight as to what actually may have happened to make them just go away?
Sorry, who are you asking a question to?
Go ahead, Mr. McAllister, sorry.
I'm not familiar with that study, sorry. Thanks.
Okay. Well, we're trying to get to the bottom of that one. When we were looking at some of the issues, with fish stocks, etc., I'm sure you're familiar with Alexandra Morton. We asked her about seal predation, and she issued a caution that seals eat hake and hake eat salmon. So, in fact, are there competitors other than obviously the killer whales? Are there competitors that also have an impact on our salmon population?
Yes, of course there are, and it is known that Pacific hake do eat salmon. I'm familiar with an ecosystem modeling study investigated the potential interactions between predation of, let's say, abundance of seals, predation on hake, and so on. And if seals are reduced in abundance, could that lead to an increase in abundance of Pacific hake? My colleague Carl Walters has done that analysis and found that there's been no, basically, in his ecosystem model of the Strait of Georgia, he found that absolutely not. No, if you reduce the abundance of harbor seals, Pacific hake would not increase enough to have any effect on the, let's say, Pacific salmon species that he included in his model, which I believe are coho salmon and Chinook salmon. And so, yes, of course, there are some species like other species. There's salmon sharks, perhaps they're increasing. There are known predators on salmon in the Pacific Ocean, but the data are quite sparse. And of course, northern resident killer whales have increased in abundance, and we do know that they're major predators of Chinook salmon, but that's just one species out of many, and there are some correlations, negative correlations between them and Chinook salmon stock productivity as well. Yes, thanks.
Have we seen an increase in the population of the transient killer whales because they do eat seal?
We see a increase in local abundance of transient killer whales. The range is known to be very wide, and so it could be just a localized response to increased harbor seal abundance. We do know that a favorite prey item in Strait of Georgia is harbor seals, and so there are a lot of observations of those predation events. But curiously, the harbor seal increased up to the late 1990s, and then they've leveled out. And the most recent stock assessment of harbor seals, which was just released a week ago, suggests that the abundance of harbor seals is just plateaued. It's not decreased. It's not increased. It's stayed approximately the same since the late 1990s, and that could be a result of, let's say, transient killer whale predation, a numerical response in terms of attracting them from other parts of the range. Thanks.
Mr. McAllister, I'll turn the rest of the time over to Mr. Kellaway.
You've been very generous. Mr. Kellaway has a minute.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Hardy. Hello to the witnesses. And my questions are to Reconcile Inuk-Shutwi. First of all, thank you for coming today. And it's great to see you. Last time we saw each other was at the SEAL conference. So I'm wondering if you could tell the folks that are here today and the folks that are watching what a return to a successful sea harvest would mean for coastal Indigenous communities for whom sealing has been a way of life, an important part of livelihood and culture. That's the first part of the question. The second is, can you speak to the importance, and you alluded to it, of the importance of using the full seal? Thank you.
You have 20 seconds to answer the question.
Infrastructure is always the main focus. If there's infrastructure to make one animal to a lot of pieces and then utilize it, that's one big factor that we need to address in the Canada. And the resources, really, if we do it the right way, this country could have a really successful seal hunt as we do as in fisheries. And you could answer that part.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you, Mr. Kellaway. We'll now go to Madame Debienne for 6 minutes or less, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you so much to all the witnesses for being with us today. Of course, I'm going to turn to my colleagues from the Magdalen Islands and from the north, of course. So why grey seal in particular? Why do you use that in your project?
The gray seal, you want to answer why the gray seal?
The reason why we do gray seal is because traditionally the harp seal for us is dog food. And the gray seal is something that is really a new product. And we're very, very picky. Inuit are very picky at what we eat. So therefore, if these Inuit are willing and welcoming the meat at this level, I bet you the rest of the country and the rest of the world will follow. But if we should really concentrate in the seal industry in this country, I believe.
Il y a une autre raison.
There's another reason on the Magdalen Islands. Grey seal is very abundant. There's 44,000 seals that lie around the islands and 430,000 that are in the Gulf, the St. Lawrence Gulf, whereas in the 60s there were just 5,000. So there's an enormous increase, and that's putting enormous pressure on the fish population. An adult eats 2 tons of fish and can live per year and can live up to 40 years. So it's a really abundant, accessible seals throughout the year in the Magdalen Islands. Earlier, we're talking about the link between predation and prey and this idea of balance, and balance in terms of the food web. There's food insecurity in the north and also in the south for northern inhabitants who live in Ottawa, for example. So in terms of this proportion, do you need more tools so that you can have more hunting to alleviate food insecurity in the north and also meet the needs in the south? For the moment, we're concentrating on food insecurity of Inuits and their need to have access to seal, but food insecurity is everywhere in the world and everywhere in Canada. There's always people who need food to eat, but we're starting with this Inuit issue. We're talking about 30% of the 65,000 Inuits who live in the south. So there is a big population of Inuits who live in the south that we don't necessarily notice, and we talk about 6,000 Inuit inhabitants in Ottawa alone who've been surveyed. So there's 6,000 Inuits who live in Ottawa, plus those who are passing through, who come here for care at hospitals or who are in the prisons or living out in the streets. There's the whole question of homelessness. So that's the reality that's the most visible. And with our project, we want to come up with a solution to these problems, namely access to food, but we want to do it in a very positive way. As I said, it's not just food for the stomach, but it's food for the mind, for the whole body, and for our whole identity as well. So yes, effectively, if we can have more help, more resources to move ahead with this project, that will certainly bring big solutions in its wake. Yes, Mr. Rubin, please.
To ask that, it's not just food, it's our culture. And a lot of Inuit are born in the cities, don't have the same knowledge as I do. So therefore, when we bring seal into their lives, they're able to learn about what parts are utilized in different ways and the names of the body parts, and also the teaching and how to care of the seal skin and all the tools that come with utilizing the skin. So it keeps the culture alive, even though we're so far away from Nunavut or wherever Inuit are from. So
Savoir-faire. So it's the transfer of knowledge and know-how. Do I still have some time, sir? That's marvelous news. 1.5 minutes. So I would like us to become aware of how your approach is not just a tangible one, because it's meeting this pressing and important and urgent need to give Inuits back their sense of their culture and their food and their knowledge, but at the same time it can also bring about reconciliation. I like this play on words with the name of your company. You're talking about also international reconciliation possibilities. So could you conclude by touching on that aspect? And what do you think about this? We are working on reconciliation between Indigenous and non-Indigenous people, and also between hunters and non-hunters, and the question of public opinion. And we work with people who are not necessarily aware of the situation. We explain to them how the seal hunting works and how we should consume it and how we should use this whole resource. By working together, we're changing this image, improving the image of seal hunting, and showing that we're able to find reconciliation at all these different levels.
Actually, the time has expired for Madam Debienne, so we'll have to go to Ms. Barron now for 6 minutes or less, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to our witnesses for being here. Is it from Shu'uti? Is that how I pronounce? Inukshubi. Okay. If I can ask a question, do you prefer Mr. Rubin? Is that how you prefer to be called?
I got lots of names. You can call me anything you want.
What's your preferred name, if I could, through the chair?
I call him Kinoptux.
There.
Kinoptux.
It means when you stir something and it becomes muddy or cloudy.
It's not clear anymore. It's cloudy.
Yeah, that's him.
I wanted to provide an opportunity for you to be able to finish your testimony. So if you wanted to pick up where you left off. Yeah.
Thank you, Lisa. And iksivota ko yan namikan nila nakama. Each of the cultural seal hunters are really, really awesome in this country, and we should respect all of them, from Newfoundland, Magdalen Islands, and Nunavut, plus the territories, and hopefully BC soon. Meat should be available everywhere in restaurants in Canada and all the stores. We need the infrastructure. Like I said, that's what will bring it. We need the same support as the Canadian government does have with the fishing industry to make the seal hunting industry a success. What do I think of seal? It shouldn't be demonized. It's a very beautiful creature. If we really want to reconcile with the Inuit, remember the time when they killed off all our dogs. I think this would be a nice way if the federal government can provide seal meat that is caught to provide to the sled dogs in the future. Imagine. If we take care of this, we talk about real reconciliation. Reconciliation, although it's a small player in this industry, but has a big ideas for the change. We have started this company all by ourselves with our own money. And now we have shown the world that what we can do, and now we need help. We need people to show us the way. Thank you.
Kawana May. Thank you very much. If I can continue my questions to you, I will say my recent visit to Nunavut, I brought my daughter up as well, and it changed so much. It just opened my eyes. It was a really, really positive experience while I was there. And one thing that came up in my conversations, both in Pengerton and Iqaluit, was around the impacts of the market, and that there are many people that are under the assumption that due to Indigenous rights, that Indigenous people can harvest. But the problem is that without the market to be able to sell the seals, to be able to utilize this renewable resource, many Inuktitut are left without the means to make a livelihood. And so I'm wondering if you can speak a little bit to how important it is that there is a market in place for Inuktitut to be able to sell this beautiful natural resource that you're talking about.
There's a market. Which country are we in? Canada. We have to educate the rest of our fellow Canadians to show them that what seals is really about. Everybody has been demonizing both the animal and the human conducting the harvesting. We have to start really showing Canada first and foremost, because we don't have borders. We can send seal meat from here all the way to BC and everything in between, and all the way to Newfoundland from here in our capital. So I think the federal government needs to start promoting it, maybe in educational situations too, maybe in schools, start them young, maybe have a food program in every school, high school, elementary school, in every province and territories, maybe. And I think it's not just an Inuit problem, it's a Canada problem that Canada can actually fix itself and not look for outside world's yes and no. No more stuff like that. Thank you.
Thank you.
On regarde souvent.
Often we look at exporting our products outside of Canada and to develop international products, but in our own country we have people who want to consume this and would want to buy seal meat. If we deploy the efforts to develop seal products domestically within Canada, then we'll be able to sell them domestically, and then we won't have this fear of having borders closed as we've seen with the US and Europe. Are we going to have it with China soon? When we send products to China, why would we do that when in fact we can be proud of eating our own products? Visitors who come to Canada should be able to say, I want to try the national product of Canada. It could be seal. I can go to IGA and find kangaroo meat. And there's big issues with that in Australia. And I can find kangaroo meat in IGA, so why can I not find seal meat in the IGA supermarket?
We'll now go to Mr. Small for 5 minutes or less, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll be splitting my time with MP Epp. I've got a couple of brief questions for Mr. Landsbergen. I've got about 2 minutes, Mr. Landsbergen. So these will only need quick answers. To your knowledge, are Norway, Iceland, and Japan currently harvesting whales?
I don't know for sure, but I do believe Japan certainly is.
So Are whales subject to the Marine Mammal Protection Act, protection of whales in the U.S.?
I believe so, yes.
So, have we seen any sanctions levied against seafood entering the U.S. from any of these countries that are hunting whales because of the whale harvest? Have you had any knowledge of that in your travels in the markets?
I don't have any information on that, sorry.
Okay. Well,
it's a good question, though.
Yeah, so I figured you might have some knowledge on that. But so I don't think that there's these sanctions. There's been any sanctioning of these countries for hunting whales, seals, puffins, whatever. How real can the threat be of sanctions against our seafood when other NAFO countries are hunting whales and they're not being sanctioned?
I think one important distinction would be to, I think the intent is to protect marine mammals while you're harvesting other fish and seafood, for example, or other marine activities. So if we can clearly articulate that as we harvest fish and seafood, we're not harming other marine mammals in the process, that we would still be within line of MMPA.
So
in that sense,
does that apply?
We should be insulated, but it all depends on the interpretation by the Americans.
Would you think that same policy would apply to Iceland, Norway, Japan as in the same sense as to Canada?
I would assume so.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Landsbergen, and thanks to all the rest of the witnesses. And I'll turn over my time to Mr. Epp right now.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, I'd like to move the following motion that I put on notice earlier this week, or that Mr. Bragdon, sorry. I quote, that given the factual inaccuracy provided by Mr. Richard Goodyear, the Department of Fisheries and Oceans Chief Financial Officer and Assistant Deputy Minister, in his testimony to the committee on December the 2nd, 2022, and raised in correspondence to the committee dated December 14th, 2022, from Mr. Gregory McClinchy, Policy and Legislative Affairs Director of the Great Lakes Fishery Commission, and that considering the harm done to Canada's relationship with the United States through Canada's continued lack of fiscal accountability toward the Great Lakes Fishery Commission and the numerous bilateral initiatives that would be jeopardized by the termination of the Great Lakes Fishery Convention, that the committee report to the House on this inaccuracy and recall Mr. Goodyear to the committee to rectify his testimony. If I can suggest, Mr. Chair, that the official Mr. Goodyear be scheduled to appear in the second hour when the minister, I believe, is scheduled to appear later this month. Thank you.
Mr. Morrissey.
Chair, I take it the motion is valid to be debated at the current time?
We're in committee business, so yes. And there was a notice went to everyone earlier. So it's not, it's within the timeline. Any further discussion on the motion?
Moment. Yes. Well, Mr. Chair, would like to suspend.
We can suspend for a moment. We've got
Sure.
6 minutes left in the meeting time.
Okay.
So we'll give you a moment.
You're gonna.
Okay, yeah, we're suspended.
Merci, Monsieur.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted simply to point out to all the colleagues around the table that we're carrying out a study and we've brought in witnesses who've come from far off, and we've got other experts online in Zoom, and our study time is precious. So I object to this process which is eating up all of our time. I think that sort of thing should come up at some point in our timetable, but let's do it another way. I very much suggest that.
Yes, Chair, I agree with Madame Desbiens. It is valid. I cannot comment on the term given the factual inaccuracy. That's subject to discussion down the road, but we have witnesses here that we should be dealing with, and this could be brought up at another time.
You have your hand up?
Yes. I mean, the factual inaccuracy has been substantiated by the Commission, not by any other portion. It's related to the testimony provided as to the status of the Great Lakes fishery budget for the 2023 season. And
it's valid.
Right, and the purpose of bringing this up and now this time was simply for the efficiency of the operating of the committee, that when the officials are coming in with the meeting at the end of the month. That's the reason for the timing.
And Ms. Barron, please.
Thank you. I just want to reiterate that moving forward, I would really love for us to be able to work collaboratively when there's something like this that needs to come forward, there's the word I'm looking for, that's timely, that we have a discussion around how we want to redistribute our time to ensure that those who speak and ask questions at the end are not inadvertently impacted as a result. I do appreciate that this is important and needs to come forward, not arguing that, but this could have been done differently. So that's a little disappointing. I appreciate the information and I will vote when it comes up.
Okay, we'll call for a vote. We've got 2 minutes to get a vote done. So, Madam Clerk, would you please look after the vote, please?
We're okay.
We don't need a vote.
Everyone's in favor?
Everybody's in favor? Okay. Done. Motion carried. Yeah, I want to say a big thank you to our witnesses for appearing today, especially the Reconcile group. To listen to you, it's amazing what you're trying to do, and I wish you nothing but success. And I want to say a big thank you to Mr. Landsbergen and Mr. McAllister, who joined by Zoom. Sorry for the interruption that we just had, but that's part of committee business, and it can happen at any time. So again, thank you for sharing your knowledge with us, and everybody enjoy the rest of your day. Meeting adjourned.